I'm Susan Philpott. I'm the author of Blown Red. I didn't start writing till I was about 50, 51 years old. And before that, I had quite a varied career. I think I like to change things up every 10 years or so. I think in my 20s, I was pretty much a perpetual student. I was in science at University of Guelph and earned a Master of Science degree. And with that, I went and worked at the Metro Toronto Zoo for 6 years, which was really, really neat. I loved it. After about 6 or 7 years, I kind of just thought, oh, it's time to change things up. So I ended up going back to school and got a Master of Social Work degree and worked as a mental health social worker in York Region for 15 years or so. So I was around 50. I don't know if I was having a midlife crisis or whatever, but I decided, well, I want to change things up again. So I decided to take a little night course, a little writing night course. I've always been interested in that. And kind of the rest is history. When I was growing up, I loved writing. When I was really young, I was a huge fan of Nancy Drew and Harriet the Spy. And I kept a spy journal with me at all times. And I was constantly noting down the ins and outs of what was going on in my neighborhood. You know, I had all sorts of scenarios going on. With my friend Julie, the two of us were a couple of Harriet the Spies around the neighborhood, keeping track of everybody. Until one day when we got into a lot of trouble as we were walking home from school and saw a car go by us rather slowly. And we decided that that must be a child abductor. Obviously, it was a child abductor, and he was after us. So we scribbled his license plate in the dirt, wrote up notes about this, you know, his appearance, the car, everything, and a huge scenario about what his background must be, et cetera, et cetera. And then we went home, and that was that. But a couple of hours later, I learned a very sorry lesson. She had apparently told her mother this, and her mother called the police. So I ended up going over to her house and being grilled by detectives about this potential child abductor. And I just felt really badly because I knew this was not real. This was fiction. So I think I really got scared, and I put aside. I learned the power of words, and I thought, you know what, this is a bit scary. I'm going to put this aside for now. Mm-hmm. And I actually did for quite some time. In high school, I loved writing. I went to, in my early university days, I took a creative writing thing, and I just loved it. And I got good feedback, but I just could not get past the power of these words, that they had to hurt other people if you use them unwisely. Getting back into writing took quite a long time. As we all know, well, I think some writers are able to write when they have children and there's all that life going on. But for me, it's too much. And I've heard stories of people that get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and write till 6 o'clock in the morning, and then they get their kids up and no, that wasn't for me. So I had to wait till the kids were gone and grown and out of the house before I had the space and the time to think about it again. And that's when I started taking some night courses. And I started with just, sort of creative writing 101, which was down at Durham College. And it was once a week for 8 weeks or something. It was the best. And all you did was you wrote 500 words each week. And it was a fabulous, fabulous education. And the teacher was amazing. So she encouraged me, and I went to Creative Writing 102. And the same thing, great encouragement. And after that, I decided there was one more course to take. I thought about it for a long time. I didn't think I was ready. I didn't think I was good enough and all that. But the teachers encouraged me, and that was called A Novel Approach. It was given by Sue Reynolds and James Dewar. They're a couple, again, through Durham College. I think it was through Durham. Might have been just them on their own. But it was a full year-long process. And they just taught you the ins and outs of character and plot and dialogue and all that sort of thing. And but mostly it was a a process by which it kept you accountable. So if you're going to do it, then you're going to do it. You're going to write your 3,000 words every 2 weeks when you come to the class. They'll be done. And then by the end of the year, you'll have X thousands of words done in a whole novel. And that's how I got back into it. So at the end of the year-long a novel approach course, I had a huge manuscript, about that big. It worked out to be about 140,000 words and 700 pages long. It was really huge. So I knew that this was not good. And I took probably another 6 months on my own and squished it down, cut it down to about 120,000 words. But at that point, I really didn't know what I was doing all too well still. I knew I'd gotten it down a little bit, and I had to move on to the next step at that point, which was sending it out to people to read, to get feedback from sort of cold readers. Initially, I chose half of them I knew would be very friendly towards me, and the other half I knew that I didn't know very well. So they wouldn't have this personal, you have to be nice to this person. And one I chose, I was a supervisor at my mental health organization. And one of the people that I supervised was a very blunt man. And I knew that for sure he would not pull any punches of all of them. So I took my courage in hand and gave it to him as well. Yeah. Because I wanted no punches pulled. I don't have any worries about people critiquing my work. And if you're going to be a writer, that is my number one thing. It's a fun journey, and you're in it to learn. And who cares if it's good or bad? So the feedback that you get from people is all about learning. It's not about, oh, I'm a terrible writer and I can't do it, I quit. It's just, oh, that's really great feedback. I'm going to learn from that. And if you can keep that in mind, it's very helpful. You will get better. And at that point, I decided, well, perhaps I'll just go through the exercise of sending it out there. So I thought, well, I'll just do it so that I go through the exercise. I had no expectations, believe me. So I heard back from 5 of the 10 agents that I sent it to. Yeah, which was shocking. I didn't expect to hear anything. The first one was the most fun because it was from an American agent, and he sent the form letter. I was excited just to get the form letter. So at this point, I'd heard nothing from anybody. But then he wrote, there was a personal thing attached to the form letter at the bottom. I really like this concept. We're not in the market for this type of story right now, but if we were, I would definitely have considered it. And I thought, oh my God, that's the best thing I've ever thought. That was super exciting. I loved it. But then others started to come in. That was one American. Then there was a boutique agent from New York City who wanted to see the entire manuscript. And there was 2 from Canada as well. One of them was interested almost immediately in making an offer, and the other wanted to read the entire manuscript as well. So at this point I was thinking, wow, this is not what I expected. Yeah. But what happened was my sister had a business acquaintance who happened to be the executive director of the Writers' Trust of Canada. And she said, my sister's written this book and it's getting some good response. Could you read her manuscript and see what you think? I gave it to him, and he was on his way to Florida for the week. And he sent her an email almost immediately from Florida. And he said, I read this on the plane. I absolutely loved it. Your sister can really write. I actually still have the email posted in my office. And I have to say that of this whole entire journey was probably it was the most exciting thing that ever happened, and the best thing. I told him that I was sending things out to agents, and he said, well, can I add another agent into that mix? And so I said, sure. And by that time I actually had a proposal from another agent in Toronto to become my agent. And he said, put her on hold for a minute and check this one out. So that's why I got Anne McDermott. And by this time I had retired from my social work job. So I was doing this full time, and honestly, full time during the days for 4 months. I have never worked so hard at anything in my entire life. Yeah. Then she started shopping around to publishers. And very quickly, it was picked up by Simon and Schuster in Canada. Yeah. Once you have both an agent and an editor at a publishing house, they kind of work together at that point. So you continue to work with both quite closely. I had an editor, I was assigned an editor at Simon and Schuster. She actually continued to let me work with Becky Toyne. Because Becky had done such a wonderful job with the first book. Becky actually edited the second book as well. So there would be feedback from the editor, whose name was Allison at that time, feedback from Becky, and feedback from Anne, because Anne continued to read everything as well. So in terms of the actual words, the three of them were involved closely all the time. So after it came back from Becky the second time, and it was approved by Allison almost right away, that was it for me for a little bit. Then it goes into their big giant system at Simon and Schuster, and actually goes down to the States, and it gets copy edited. So that's where they check for every comma and all the grammar, and was that name the same here as it was there? And is that woman, could she possibly be that age? Because way back when I read that it was the 19 something. They are so picky, it is unbelievable. And they actually did find mistakes like that still, which I had thought would be humanly impossible because I had been through everything with a fine-tooth comb, as had everybody else. But no, they still found stuff. So they will then send back the copy edited version to you, and then you need to sign off on all the changes that they've made. And then it goes back to them again, and then they do it again, and they send it back to you again. I think it comes back and forth maybe 3 or 4 times. And when it comes in to you, they typically say, it comes with a message saying, we need this back by Friday. And it's Thursday afternoon. Seriously, I'm not even joking. And you're in the middle of another deadline for the second book that's due on Monday or something. So you're up all night going through, I'm sure that comma's right. I'm sure it is. Very, very fast and tight deadlines with publishing. The whole process takes about at minimum of 18 months. So when you first hand in that first manuscript, it's going to take a long time before it actually shows up on the bookshelves. So don't go in thinking that, oh, by Christmas it'll be. No, that's not the way it works. They're done, if all the copy editing is done, then they start, I guess they go on to the advanced reading copy, where it gets into this book format without a cover yet. It's just a white cover. And they then send those advanced reading copies out to various people to read and maybe hopefully make endorsements for and all that sort of thing. At that same time, the art people are working on it, and they sent me 3 potential covers, which was really cool when that arrived. I almost had tears in my eyes because I loved the covers that they sent me. The guy had done a fabulous job. And so I got to pick which one I liked. And Anne, my agent, also had input into that. So we picked one. And then the next stage is the book comes back again, more advanced reading copies, but this time with the beautiful cover. And at that point, that's when Anne takes it to various places and tries to sell it worldwide. Yeah. Pretty. The day that I received the book was extremely exciting. Yeah. It came to my little post office here, and I opened them up. It was amazing. It was just so unbelievable that night course had turned into this reality. I was over the moon. My advice in anything that you're deathly afraid of in any part of your life is to just do it anyway. Even if you loathe and hate it and despise every minute of it as you're going through it, you feel better at the end that you faced your fears and made it through.